Welcome to Weeping at the Water, a gathering for lament and commitment. This event is being offered by Hope for Creation, a local interfaith group that is also the Southwest Michigan chapter of Michigan Interfaith Power and Light. I am Ruth Mordyke, a member of Hope for Creation and pastor of Skyridge Church in Kalamazoo. I helped develop this event and will be steering us through it. Other readers are Donna McClurkin of People's Church, Nathan Moore of the Fetzer Institute, Rabbi Simone Schicker of Temple B'nai Israel, and Rick Welch of First Congregational Church. We offer this today because of the need to acknowledge and wrestle with our sense of grief and loss because of climate change and its infinite impact, and our sense of grief and loss during the COVID-19 pandemic. If we pay attention, we know that these crises teach us that all things in this world are deeply interconnected.
Using images and readings, this program uses water as an entry point into our grief over the fraying of those interconnections in the endless loss of habitat and species, of healthy air and water and soil, of culture and livelihood as we have known them. Water is the origin of all life on the planet. It is essential. It connects all. Even the salty tears of our weeping and of our joy carry within them the memory of ancient oceans.
We remember the times we have wept, and we know we will weep again for the pain of this world, for the loss of more than we can even begin to articulate. In the program that follows, we intend to provide a space for remembering the vital flow of water within all, acknowledging a tiny portion of the harm we have done to the earth, expressing our lament over the incomprehensible losses we face, remembering to breathe and calm and center ourselves, offering thanks for the wondrous gifts of life still surrounding us, enlivening us, committing ourselves to acting on behalf of the waters, on behalf of the world they make possible.
We begin with a reading by poet and activist Natalie Diaz. The first body is the water. We think of our bodies as being all that we are. I am my body. This thinking helps us disrespect water, air, land, and one another. But water is not external from our body, ourself. My elder says, cut off your ear, you will live. Cut off your hand, you will live. Cut off your leg, you can still live. Cut off our water, we will not live more than a week. The water we drink, like the air we breathe, is not a part of our body, but is our body. What we do to one, to the body, to the water, we do to the other. Toni Morrison writes, all water has a perfect memory and is forever trying to get back to where it was, back to the body of the earth, of flesh, back to the mouth, the throat, the womb, back to the heart, to its blood, back to our grief, back to when we were more than we have lately become. Will we soon remember from where we've come? The water, and once remembered, will we return to that first water, and in doing so return to ourselves, to each other, better and cleaner? Do you think the water will forget what we have done, what we continue to do?
The water we drink is not a part of our body, but is our body. What we do to one, we do to the other. What have we done?
Many years ago, the UN Environmental Sabbath reminded us of the great harm of forgetting who we are all together on this planet. We have forgotten who we are. We have alienated ourselves from the unfolding of the cosmos. We have become estranged from the movements of the earth. We have turned our backs on the cycles of life. We have forgotten who we are. Now the land is barren, and the waters are poisoned, and the air is polluted. We have forgotten who we are. Now the forests are dying, and the creatures are disappearing, and humans are despairing. We have forgotten who we are.
Even the ancient ancestors of today's Judaism, Christianity, and Islam knew the devastation we often wield upon the earth and profoundly bewailed it. The prophet Jeremiah declared, "Take up weeping and wailing for the mountains, and a lamentation for the pastures of the wilderness. Both the birds of the air and the animals have fled and are gone. Call for the mourning women to come. Let them quickly raise a dirge over us, so that our eyes may run down with tears and our eyelids overflow with water."
Like the ancestors, we grieve because we love. Even mainstream journalism has begun to acknowledge that. As the New York Times says, our pain for what is happening is the other side of the coin of our love for the world. We feel such depths of despair because we love the planet so much.
The Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh tells us that we must engage this love, this grief. He writes, "What we most need to do is to hear within us the sounds of the earth crying."
Many spiritual teachings encourage us in their wisdom to sometimes enter into lament. Lament may be a difficult or alien word to some of us. We dwell in a time and place that discourages deep engagement with emotions, especially grief and loss. Lament responds meaningfully and profoundly to our losses and grief. It expressively and undeniably embodies the emotions and sensations we're often encouraged to suppress.
As the teacher and activist Joanna Macy writes, our pain for the world, including the fear, anger, and sorrow we feel on behalf of life on earth, is not only pervasive, it is natural and healthy. It is only dysfunctional to the extent that it is misunderstood and repressed. We don't break free from denial and repression by gritting our teeth and trying to be nobler, braver citizens. We don't retrieve our passion for life, our wild, innate creative intelligence by soldiering on with a stiff upper lip. The worldview emerging now lets us behold anew and experience afresh the web of life in which we exist. It brings us to a larger identity in which the cradle to transcend our ego-defined fears. It lets us honor our pain for the world as a gateway into deep participation in the world's self-healing.
The next 4 slides describe a few of the many practices that invite people to sense our grief and express and honor our pain for the world. You may choose to review these suggested practices and know what you might want to revisit. Or perhaps you will want to pause this program and begin to practice a little bit, then come back. Whatever you do with this information, remember that these practices are vessels for engaging deep feelings. A vessel can contain what enriches and nurtures us, and it helps keep its content from spilling into everything else. Remember to use these practices as vessels with clear boundaries of time and place. Hold them with gentleness and care. Use your body as you are able. Find space that feels comfortable and safe. Wail and howl, keen like the women at a death. Dance, move slowly or furiously. Bend your body downward with burden. Lift your arms upward in fury or pleading. Be still. Drop to the floor or the ground. Kneel. Cradle your head in your hands. Wrap your arms around yourself and rock. Get on your hands and knees and cry. Try once in a while to let your grief guide your body and follow its wisdom. Then, after a bit, take some deep and slow breaths. Pause this program now and spend some time with this practice, or note the possibilities and move on.
Use paper, pens, crayon, paints, other stuff. Gather it. Scribble and spew words onto paper: frustration, anger, fear, grief. Don't worry if it makes sense. You can burn the paper or bury it in the earth, or keep it to revisit, retouch the feelings later. Splash and smear colors onto paper or canvas or wood or fabric. It won't be pretty probably if you're expressing loss and agony. Let that be okay. As with the writing, you can burn it, bury it, revisit it later. Tear and rip and slash and ravel some fabric. Rend a garment, as many traditions have taught, as a sign of grief. Get some air drying clay. Grab a chunk and mold it, pull it, push it, flatten it, and shape it until it feels like it has captured some of your angst. Let it dry thoroughly, then smash it, or put it in some water where it will eventually dissolve. Then, after a bit, take some deep and slow breaths. Pause this program now and spend some time with this practice, or note the possibilities and move on.
Wrap your arms around a tree or sit at its base. Sense the tree's sadness. Let your own sadness surface. Rest for a while in this communion of beings. Talk with the tree if you want. Then, after a bit, take some slow and deep breaths. Pause this program now and spend some time with this practice, or note the possibilities and move on.
Release some tears. Weep. Look at yourself in a mirror. Dip your fingers in some water. Trace tears on your cheeks. And again, weep. When it is safe to do so, practice this with someone you trust. Trace tears on each other's faces and weep. Then, after a bit, take some slow and deep breaths. Pause this program now and spend some time with this practice, or note the possibilities and move on.
Any of these practices can be revisited, explored further, journaled about, and we also need to remain present to the world around us, aware of our own life, our own breath. So, after a time of grieving, some moments of touching emotional pain and anguish, trust that you have loosened some of the emotional numbness and paralysis that can get in the way of our brave engagement with the world as it is. Now, rest. Remember to pause. Breathe as deeply as you can. Then again, as much as you need to, as gently and smoothly as you can, as often as you need to. Like water, our breath connects us to all else and to our own core of life.
As we approach the end of this presentation, hear a reading that returns us to the place where we began. Linda Hogan writes, "Outside it is thawing. The creek is breaking apart. Water seeps out of the rock canyon above me. It has been around the world. It has lived beneath the lights of fireflies and bayous at night when mist laid itself about cypress trunk. It has held sea turtles in its rocking arms. It has been the Nile River. It has come from the rainforest that gave birth to our air. It brings with us stories of where it's been. It reminds us that we are water people. We are creatures that belong here. This world is in our blood and bones, and our blood and bones are the earth. Out from bare rock, the water flows from times before our time. The clouds flying overhead are rivers. Thunder breaks open and those rivers fall like a sprinkling of baptismal water, giving itself back, everything around river, in a circle, alive and moving. May we always be thankful for the circle of life and for the waters that carry it."
In his lecture in Kalamazoo in March, Jonathan Safran Foer, author of We Are the Weather, admonished his listeners to make specific and concrete commitments towards caring for the earth. He essentially noted that abstract principles and vague intentions don't actually alter anything. We need to begin where we are. Probably none of us are prepared to break the law and join civil disobedience actions like turning off the valves on oil pipelines, for example. But we can make specific, measurable commitments to change our own behavior. What can we do to help care for the earth and the planet? Eat 2 less meat-based meals a week? Air dry sheets and towels? Stop drinking bottled water? Stop flying for vacations? Remind the governor once a month that Flint and other places need access to safe drinking water. Talk intentionally and intelligently to one different person every week about your concerns about climate change. What can you do? Use your imagination. Look at your life. Take a first step. When you fall short, start again. New decisions take a while to become habit. Then begin another one.
As you consider your commitments and begin to bring them into reality, perhaps this statement of intention from Thich Nhat Hanh will have use. Perhaps you will want to carry it with you. Water flows over these hands. May I use them skillfully to preserve our precious planet.
Remember to be compassionate to yourself, to others, to the planet, and hear this blessing from the Celts. Deep peace of the running wave to you. Deep peace of the flowing air to you. Deep peace of the quiet earth to you. Deep peace of the shining stars to you. Deep peace of the infinite peace to you.